Hi guys, welcome to this week's Reclassified here on Ickonic.com. This week I want to talk about the Cube of Jerusalem and how we get to that stage. We're going through the transhumanist agenda, connecting in to what will be a cube that will descend, they believe, from the heavens down onto the earth and cover a vast portion of the planet, especially in the Middle East and Egypt. And you'll see that as we go along. So I want to kind of work towards that and how they kind of look towards these Kabbalistic principles to bring this about. And they kind of invoke these memes, basically, and try and kind of make them reality. One of the first things I looked at was something called tannin iva, and I hadn't heard of this until I listened to Wayne McCroy's podcast on Tracy Twyman's book Clock Shavings. It's a fantastic book. It's a fantastic podcast, so go and have a look at Alchemical Tech Revolution and that episode, because it is particularly good. But one of the things he mentioned in there is something called tannin iva. Now let's have a look what that is. So the power and abilities of tannin iva. So tannin iva has been summoned to draw the untapped resources of dark power within the summoner. So when we look at that bit of that principle there, remember these are principles that they take into this Kabbalistic kind of black magic, dark magic that they're kind of trying to bring about. So this says that tannin iva has been summoned to draw the untapped resources of dark power within the summoner. So what this means is this being, I think it's a dragon, but in terms of the kind of biblical stories or the Kabbalistic stories or the Torah and Talmud, this being taps into the human and is able to bring the dark power through them. So it's possession, I suppose you could call it. Now, how this attaches into the transhumanist agenda, I would suggest that they may be using this principle to use the nanotechnology to bring this energy, dark energy, or at least they believe they are because they are nutters, that they're using this technology to possess the human through the nanotechnology. And that's kind of the principle, the tannin iva principle. It's the bringing together of two different sources. So let's have a look at the overview of tannin iva. What is this being, this entity? So tannin iva is an ancient abyssal creature born from iron who became the steed of Lilith. And we'll talk about Lilith later on. And we've covered Lilith in a few of the classified episodes as well. So he's considered a mechanism by which evil is activated. So what I just said, it's a mechanism by which evil is activated. It's the middle ground. So they need this element in there, and they believe that they can use the human as a vessel to bring this evil into the world via the technology in the human. Again, it's a techno-possession, basically. Though tannin iva is castrated, echoing a fable about the Vitzahara, he is still the catalyst for the coupling of Lilith with Samael, a union that brings pestilence and suffering into the world. Now, when you look at the Lurianic Kabbalah, you've got the good God and the bad God. You know, it's duality, it always has to be. So the good God is their good God anyway, is Yahweh and Shekinah. That's the female and male aspect of the androgynous Godhead. Good God. And on this side you have Lilith and Samael, who's the bad devil demon god, and that is, you know, split into two, Lilith and Samael. So Lilith and Samael, bad. Shekinah and Yahweh, good, although you read what Yahweh was actually doing and it was pretty horrific. So there's an inversion there possibly going on, but this is what this beast is able to do. This tannin iva is able to bring the two evils together. So the evil side, it connects Lilith and Samael together. It's the binding of the two. So it could be said that this tannin iva is being invoked as the ability to allow possession from these demon entities into our world through the human using tannin iva. And it's Tracy Twyman that actually came up, or from what I know, came up with this concept in her book Clock Shavings, which is again an absolutely fascinating read if you can get hold of it. So here's an extract from that. So a version of Baphomet's sigil by Stanislas de Gutia includes the names of the demons Samael and Lilith. The opposite side of this sigil shows the figure of a man with the names Adam and Eve written around it. Samael and Lilith are described in the Kabbalah as a hermaphrodite being. Again, hermaphrodite being. It's this dual gender, kind of no gender being, which we are clearly working towards, and this is what they want. These Satanists, Luciferians, Kabbalists, there's differences between the terms, but we kind of understand them to be very similar anyway. But Luciferianism seems to be the one that at least the Freemasons at the top level, the Knights Templar even look to, but some people call them Satanists. So Samael and Lilith are described in the Kabbalah as a hermaphrodite being formed by two serpents locked in sexual unions, and you see that the Caduceus in the middle of this Baphomet figure, and he's holding like a staff from his crotch, because they always do crotch stuff, these people. There is an intermediary called the Tannin Iver between them, necessary to make the union possible, because Samael is said to have been castrated. When locked together, the Kabbalists refer to the combination of these two demons as the beast and the other god. So this is Samael and Lilith locked together with the union happening. So maybe it's the priest that marries them, see it that way, called Tannin Iver, that brings them together, and they call it the beast and the other god, because they see that as the evil god. In Gnosticism, it's all switched around and upside down. So Yahweh is the evil god, and the Samael and Lilith is the one that allows us to get to the knowledge and the knowledge of the gods, and allows us to kind of not live in blind servitude to these other gods. So it's switched over in Gnosticism, from what I can tell. And anyway, that's only really what we've been told what Gnosticism is. I mean, that's up for debate as well. So it is said that if they were ever truly allowed to unite, it would destroy the universe. This is in the Kabbalah again. This is what these guys believe. So if Lilith and Samael were ever to unite, it would destroy the universe. But these guys want to reset the universe anyway, so keep that in mind. This is why the male organs were taken, to prevent cosmic doom. Just got to be safe. The two serpents can be seen represented in the Eliphas Levi depiction of Baphomet, where he is shown with the twin snake Caduceus pole rising from his crotch region, as I said earlier, crotch stuff. These snakes, in combination, are said to be the serpent that tempted Adam and Eve in Eden. So again, the Gnostics see that as freeing them with knowledge, whereas these guys see it as them trying to become like gods. It really depends on what you see, and obviously the mainstream Christians see it the same as well. Samael may have been the true father of Cain through Eve, and Lilith may have mothered thousands of demon children. Just something to do, isn't it? By having sex with Adam, or so the Kabbalists say. So you can see the inversion principles going on there, and then basically setting up both sides to clash in their belief system. So may have been the mother of Cain through Eve. So Lilith was the first wife of Adam, and she was his equal. And he didn't seem to be happy about that, so he divorced her, and she went off with Samael, and then he found Eve, who was more willing to do the man's bidding, basically. So it's all mixed around, all jumbled up. They take the same stories, but it's fascinating to see how this. Remember, I'm talking about what this cult believe. I believe this cult believe, and not what I believe or what the actual original text meant, because that's up to debate forever. But it's what these guys believe that are bringing this messianic age about. These Chabad Lubavitch guys, these Sabbateans, these Ashkenazi Jews, these well, they say they're Jews, but Jewish is the faith, so I would say Ashkenazi Sabbateans, basically. Ashkenazi Sabbateans, these Kabbalists, these you look at the likes of the Muslim Brotherhood, and you look at the likes of the Knights Templar, which is the highest level of the Freemasons. They're all doing this stuff underneath, using the shield of faith and religion and pretending that they are. It's Donma, it's crypto. They're doing it behind. That's why it's called crypto. That's why the money is called crypto, because these cryptos are doing something else in the background and selling you something false and fake out the front. So that's Tracy Twyman's first quote, but I want to have a read of this. So this is the picture here. You can see Samael Lilith on the front. This is the Baphomet head. This is the classic one, the one that's on the front of Elon Musk's lovely Mars, Apollyon, even Mars, Shiva, the Destroyer, Apollo uniform he wore with the inverted cross on the back. So basically, if you look at that as his suit, He had that on the front, the Baphomet on the front, and on the back he had the inverted cross. So he would have the human upside down, hung upside down. And we covered what the cross was, I think, in last week's episode. If not, I've mentioned it somewhere along the line. I think it was in What If. So what that is basically the hanging of a person on the cross, and it used to just be T-shaped. It wasn't crossed over the top. So the middle shaft, let's use that word. Why not? I do. Is the male energy, the red energy from the polarities, and the blue going across the top there is the female, and it's where they cross and create humans. It's the union of male and female, and then they hang you on there, and it's basically their way of saying we've deleted your being, the fact that you were ever alive. This is now not a thing. So that's a kind of way. But then to turn it upside down is the transhumanist way. And that's why Elon Musk would have that on the back and Baphomet on the front. So front and back sides of Stanis de Gautier's Baphomet sigil, featuring the names of Samael, Lilith, Adam and Eve, and Hebrew Leviathan. I believe that what is being alluded to is sex magic through demon possession. Remember, this is Tracy Wyman. The serpent is castrated because he is no longer alive and able to generate sexually. He and his wife Lilith can only be united by possessing other humans. And here we go again. So he and his wife, Samael and Lilith, can only be united by possessing other humans. And this is where this Tannin Iver comes in, who replaces the sexual prowess of Samael and is able to join these two. So he and his wife Lilith can only be united by possessing other humans. This is where this kind of principle of having a technology in the middle, the Tannin Iver technology, to allow humans to be possessed may be a thing. It's been suggested, and Wayne McCroy talks about that as well. And I think it's a very good suggestion. Remember, they use these principles. We don't have to believe in it for these people to think it's true. Their bodies are the Tannin Iver symbolised in mythology and stories like that of Isis, who had to fashion a golden dildo to have sex with her dead husband Osiris. Again, what these people get up to at the weekend. Like, these stories are hilarious. But yes, she did. Osiris was dismembered by, I think it was his brother, Set, and then put back together by his wife, Isis, who is also Semiramis, and she couldn't find the penis, so she made a gold one, because gold is the eternal flame, and then Horus, their son, I believe, Horus Horizon, the rising sun, he avenged his father's death eventually, but that's all mixed in. All this mythology is mixed in, and I find it fascinating anyway. But Lilith and Samael are the same being, the beast, according to these Kabbalists, and they are together. They would destroy the world if they got back together. But what they're aiming to do, these Sabbatean Kabbalists, Chabad lot, are to unite Shekinah and Yahweh, the good God, so the female and male aspects of good God, in Solomon's temple, and then bring about their world to come, which we'll get to later. So you can see it's starting to form this information as we go through it, but this is what they appear to believe anyway. So meeting Lilith. So this is Tannin Iver and Lilith and Samael. So this is the meeting of the three of them. So in the torturous realm of Shalol, Tannin Iver waited and waited for many years for something to happen. This would stay until Tannin Iver encountered Lilith as she laid in the Red Sea. Just having a rest. In hell. Oh, maybe not. Banished from the Garden of Eden by God. They didn't say which God, for refusing to submit to Adam. Lilith, so she wouldn't submit to Adam, that's why he got a second wife who was more submissive, which was Eve. Lilith was both curious and fascinated by this creature, seeing that it was neither angel nor beast, native to heaven and Eden, and beckoned it with her song, which is kind of like what these Mossad honey traps do. This is the same kind of thing. It's this lust trapping you in a honey trap, and that's what the Mossad kind of thing is. So it's the Lilith of the two. A melody that held a harmonic discord, which was said to have reshaped, so that could be shapeshift, his form to suit Lilith's needs. So she shapeshifted him. As a result, he became a loyal companion and steed. So she basically took this dragon-like being, reshaped him in the image that she wanted, and used him. Afterwards, Tannin Iver informed Lilith of the angel Samael's banishment from the mountain of God and led her towards him. Tannin Iver's hand in having Lilith meet Samael led to the impending creation of plagues and darkness among the earth, as well as the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. And you can see now what they believe, these Kabbalists. They believe the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve are the devil's children. It's just insane. So let's read that again. Led to the impending creation of plagues and darkness among the earth, as well as the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. So this is where this dual race comes from, and when we're all just clearly one human race with subsects within it. Obviously you have African American and Caucasian, but they're trying to split this off into two lines, and you have Esau and Jacob, who later became Israel. So Esau and Jacob, and they kind of fought over these birthrights, and it was Jacob that stole Esau's birthright, and there's this whole convoluted kind of fight over who are God's chosen people, which is absurd, obviously, but this is what they kind of do, and it's triangulation between three Abrahamic faiths. You've got Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and my belief is that they were possibly set up to do that, or at least they have been weaponized that way. So the original sin, Tannin Iver remained with Lilith by the Red Sea until they saw Lucifer and Samael approaching them sometime after the war in heaven, and were on their way to the Garden of Eden. Lilith and her steed joined the two fallen archangels on their quest to strike back at God and to pay back her debt to Lucifer for freeing her from Adam's presence. The four would only make them move at the hour the angels go up to worship God. So that was the original sin. So it's just fascinating that these things are written like this. So let's talk about Lilith quickly. So Lilith obviously being the female aspect of Samael, so the bad one of the bad one, the bad lady of the bad god, according to Kabbalah. But as I say, it seems to be Gnosticism switches that the other way round. They've freed us with knowledge instead of us trying to become gods through knowledge. Again, you can see it gets convoluted and quite confusing. It really depends on whose teachings, and that's why people argue about this stuff, like this means that, this means this. It really depends on what belief system you're coming at it from. I'm talking about what these Chabad, Sabbatean, Zionist, Ashkenazim, Satanists, Luciferians, whatever you want to call them, bad people, messianic lunatics, believe, not what I believe. In the teachings of Rabbi Isaac Luria, so this is the Lurianic Kabbalah, it is said there are many Liliths. Manasseh Mutium Sithon said many Liliths and demons are abroad and go up and down. That to me seems like the Mossad honey traps. The greatest of these is the wife of Adam Kadmon, a being that God used as an avatar to create universe in all its 10 or more dimensions, hence a multiverse. Another, more demonic Lilith, known as the woman of whoredom, she didn't stand a chance if she was called that, did she, is found in the Zohar book. Of course it is. She is Samael's, Satan's feminine counterpart. So again, the other side, the blue side of the red side in the polarities. The Lilith that most are familiar with is the wife of Adam in the alphabet of Ben Sara, 8th to 10th century CE, known as Adam Harishon, the first man among Kabbalists. There are mixed views of Lilith in the Zohar. In one account, she is Samael's counterpart and a mother of demons. In another, she is seen seducing the fallen angels of Namar, the angels of Azar and Azazel, after they challenge the Shekinah, which is the female aspect of the good God, over the creation of man. This is alluded in the Zohar book, respectively, when Lilith and Naham, another aspect of Lilith. So this is where it gets confusing, because it seems to me like these are this is another way of saying you are schizophrenic and you've got loads of different versions of yourself. Or it could be this MK Ultra programming where you're split off into different personalities and the true personality gets hidden in beneath. I mean, that may be a principle that they've applied to this as well, because these people seem to have different aspects of the same being, and that's what gets confusing. where with Adam in his 130th year separation from Eve after the fall, they had daughters born from their union. They were Nisiam and the Ilioth spirits who were the ones who seduced the Watchers. These daughters, along with Lilith and Naaman, are restored to Adam through the wisdom of Solomon. The aspect of Shekinah referred to as the two prostitutes and the Nishiam in chapters 4 and 5 in the Zohar book of concealment. They talk a lot about prostitutes in there. Basically, she is, again, the female aspect of the bad god, according to these guys. The most commonly repeated factoid is that she was the woman Adam married before Eve. That didn't work out. This is from the Chabad website, by the way. More about that later. And she was turned to dust and replaced by Eve, mother of all human life. From that point on, it is obvious that every reference to Lilith is a non-physical being. None of this is obvious at all. As the Kabbalist Rabbi Almon Vittel explains in his book of Reincarnations. This includes the tradition called in both Talmud and Midrash after Adam and Eve ate the fruit and were booted from the Garden of Eden, from grasping at the knowledge that Lilith apparently told them to go and have, or Samael, depends on which version you read. In typical form for human beings, they blamed one another and went their separate ways. That's when one spiritual form of Lilith returned to mess with Adam again, somehow getting him to bring evil spirits in the world. So these guys think he come back as well. So she it appears to be that these guys believe that he was with Lilith first. She was a bit of a wrong un, so she disappeared into dust, into the heavens, and wherever she went. And then Adam got with Eve. They had a bit of a falling out over eating the apple. So you made me do it. You suggested, you tempted me. And then Lilith saw that as an opportunity to come back in and have another go with Adam. It's hard to keep up with this stuff, isn't it? This is like Only Way is Essex with more fruit. To paraphrase God himself, why not? A man alone is not a good idea. The mystery continues in Kabbalah as the Zohar contains at least 30 references to Lilith in later literature of Halak. Kabbalah and liturgy, she makes more common appearances but always remains an enigma, to the degree that she seems more a quirk in the cosmic system than just another spirit. Indeed, in later Kabbalistic literature, she is referred to as the feminine side of evil. There you go again. Indeed, the concept of Lilith really tells us much about a fault in the nature of masculine side of humankind. She could even be seen as the one propelling man to fix himself, to recreate himself, to bring himself to his own 2.0, and that is really important. This is from the Chabad website, so by the way. So remember, 2.0, his own 2.0. They are talking about, clearly, and these are the guys that want to build Solomon's temple and reunite, Shekinah and Yahweh in the Holy of Holies, and reset the world after, 6,000 years. They are talking about human 2.0, even in their own wording. That's transhumanism, obviously. So they are referencing this stuff and putting it out there in the public for everyone to see if you know where to find it. So this was really, really interesting, this next part. So this talks about like a technology. So there's a good technology and a bad technology that exists on the other side, and that's getting filtered through to our world. And I know David spoke about something very similar about this, about the technology coming through the underground systems, coming through like the bases, like the Dulce base and the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which isn't too far from Zorro Ranch, by the way, which we'll get to later because there's connection to Lilith here and this whole system. That technology is coming from those bases eventually out into the open once they're kind of softened people up to accept them. But in the reality, David suggests that this technology is coming from the other side, across the veil. But these guys believe there's a good technology and a bad technology. And it says Lilith is from Tao, Eve is from Tukun. So these are the two different technologies. So Lilith, as I wrote, was woman 1.0, using that terminology again at Chabad. This is Chabad. At first, releases often go, she was difficult, judgmental, and generally not too friendly. So she was the beta female. As we'll see, Adam 1.0 had and still has his own issues. So we still have Adam 1.0, but the women have moved on to Eve, who's woman 2.0, if you're following any of this. That's what Adam alluded to in his enigmatic dual metaphor. This time she is a bone from my bones, flesh from my flesh, bone of my bones, meaning a personality as flexible as a dry bone. So she suited him better. Adam dumped the one fast. Adam dumped that one fast, the first one. As the Midrash cited above puts it, she returned to dust. Flesh from my flesh refers to woman 2.0, aka Shava. Sometimes that's called Eve, or somehow that became Eve in English. She was more easygoing, less critical, far more responsive, as flesh is relative to bones. This worked really well for a long time relationship. I love it when they put these in kind of terminology. They're trying to make this available to the common man who wouldn't speak some of or understand the language or bother to read it because it's just like a chore, and it is a lot of like, what are you talking about? I love it when they put them into these types of words. It just seems comical and funny, and it takes away all the seriousness of it, which is probably part of it. This worked really well for a long time relationship. You can say user friendly on 2.0. Eve was user friendly since this was really a peer-to-peer relationship. As for Lilith, stroke woman 1.0, she endures only a spirit without a body, haunting mankind as opposed to womankind until we achieve Adam 2.0. So they're using this transhumanist terminology again to talk about women 2.0, women 1.0, and male 2.0, but we're not there yet. We're still an Adam 1.0. The two versions had much to do with technology implemented. Remember, this is Chabad. The Lilith 1.0 version, so the first female, relied on technology from the world of Tohu. That's a world previous to ours, but built entirely on absolutes. Absolute light, absolute darkness, absolute kindness, and absolute harshness. Tohu technology was an all-round failure. So they're talking about two sets of technology. The original was Tau technology, the beta technology, and that was Lilith, and it was a failure, resulting in a major systems crash throughout the cosmos. In the aftermath, and pretty much in response to that disaster, the world of Tukun was reformed. So Tukun was the updated world, and then you could see this as coming through in the Gnostic principles, talking about an original state of this place, and this is a hacked copy. So you can see these kind of principles keep popping in, or these memes, or these archetypes, as Wayne McCroy would call it, which is basically something that speaks to your inner soul as a truth without really having to say much at all. An archetype, it just brings forward this truth, and this would be an archetype that they're bringing forward, that there was two sets of technology, but there was a fake, there was original Earth, and this one that we're living in is a fake one, which the Gnostics would say. These guys take it as the original technology failed and this new technology is better. So you can see why they clash, Gnosticism and this Jewish messianic stuff. So in Tukun, everything was balanced and harmonized in a holistic and relativistic system, which is basically red and blue of the polarities. Light was tempered with darkness and darkness with light. Kindness knew what it means to be harsh and could even use that harshness if necessary to attain even greater kindness. Here we go again, and I said this last week. You cannot get good out of evil. They are two different polarities. They're going in two different directions, so they're confusing it here. They're trying to they're trying to circle two lines going either way. And that's what they try and do, is triangulate. So they're saying that you can do as much evil as you want, but you can end up doing some good in the end, which is total nonsense as well, obviously. But this is what they believe. That's why the cremation of care and all of these things. As for harshness, it's lost its autonomous modality altogether, becoming no more than an adjective function to kindness. There you go again. So you can do evil deeds and get to good in the end. This is what these lunatics believe. So I spoke to, you guys would have probably seen this, but if you haven't, go and look back on the 2 episodes that I've done with Juliette Bryant. Lovely lady. She's a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and we were talking about her experience there, obviously in the first 2. She's a massive revelation. She talked about him shape-shifting and waking up on a laboratory table naked under Zorro Ranch. Remember, Zorro Ranch isn't too far from Los Alamos National Laboratory or Dulce Base or Trementina or the Trinity site, which is something I'm going to talk about in the future, because I believe they opened up portals there, and the footage of which was processed at Lookout Mountain in Hollywood. But back to this. So The reason why we're talking about Lilith is because many of Epstein survivors have the blue butterfly either tattooed, or they use it on the front covers of their books. So that was really interesting. And what does that mean? And Juliet appears to not know what it actually meant to her. But there are two different versions. So to the Kabbalah, it's one thing. To other belief systems, it's another. So it's hard to say exactly what it actually means in this situation, but there's two kind of options here. So I'm not settled on either. But so this is the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah. So Lilith is listed as one of the Kilipoth, corresponding to the Sephirah Malkuth in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, which is the bottom one, which is Earth. The demon Lilith, the evil woman, is described as a beautiful woman who transforms into a blue butterfly-like demon and is associated with the power of seduction. So this is where the honey trap stuff comes in. So this is where I was talking about with the Mossad guys. Lilith would be a representation of these honey traps from Mossad sent out to the world. And that's what the blue butterfly represents in Kabbalah. It seems to represent Lilith, the butterfly-like demon, and associated with the power of seduction. So that's what it represents in Kabbalah. That doesn't mean necessarily what it represented in terms of the Jeffrey Epstein thing. So here you can see there, so Epstein victims and blue butterfly symbols. This is from Juliet herself. She's doing her own research into this, which I find fascinating. She will be back on the show again in a couple of weeks' time, talking about her updated research into this, because it would be great to get into that, because she's looking for answers as well. They have the Butterfly Trust. So these are the reasons why it's really interesting. So Virginia has it as a logo. So Virginia is one of the Epstein survivors. Sarah, another Epstein survivor, has a tattoo of it. And Julian Bryant has a diary of it with it on the front, which you can see is the fourth picture down there. They're all the blue butterfly, and you can see it's the same. And Epstein started the Butterfly Trust in 2014 to pay off his victims. It's absolutely fascinating that this all comes. Now, could this be... I don't have the answer to this, by the way, obviously. But could it be that this is subliminal programming? That they've got these things done and not realised it? Or could it mean that it means the other thing we'll come to later to these people? But it's so interesting that all these guys that were involved and survived Epstein's abuse, who we know was looking into transhumanism. We know he had cement trucks filling his tunnels on Epstein Island 3 weeks before it was raided. We know he had the blue roof of Shekinah on the Epstein Island buildings. And we know in Zora Ranch, Juliet Bryant says, and I believe her, that she woke up in a laboratory naked and paralysed under Zorro Ranch, which is so near to all these other underground bases in New Mexico. So there's something to this. What it is, we're still trying to work out. But the blue butterfly part is absolutely fascinating to me. That investigation discovered that Deutsche Bank had sent over 120 wires totaling the US dollar of $2.65 million, so $390 million, for Epstein to the Butterfly Trust, whose beneficiaries include a number of women with Eastern European surnames. The payments were justified as hotel expenses, tuition, and rent, as well as settlement payments of more than US 7 million and legal expenses for more than US 6 million. So this is the Butterfly Trust, and that's the blue butterfly there. Now, it does mean something else as well, so it's worth looking into this. I'm always open to being wrong, but so let's have a look at what another kind of understanding of the blue butterfly. I mean, but that was what the Kabbalists seem to believe it was. So that would imply what I believe Jeffrey Epstein is probably a Kabbalist, but I don't know that for sure. From the secret teaching of all ages, the butterfly, under the name Psyche, a beautiful maiden with wings of opalescent light, symbolizes the human soul because of the stages it passes through in order to unfold its power of light. The three divisions through which the butterfly passes in its unfoldment resemble closely the 3 degrees of mystery schools, which degrees are regarded as consummation of the unfoldment of man by giving him emblematic wings by which he may soar the skies. Unregenerated man, ignorant and helpless, is symbolized by the stage between ovium and larva. The disciple, seeking truth and dwelling in meditation, by the second stage from larva to pupa, or papa, at which the insect enters its chrysalis, the tomb of mysteries. The third stage, from pupa to imago, wherein the butterfly comes forth, typifies the unfolded, unenlightened soul of the initiate rising from the tomb of his basic nature, or baser nature. The soul of man, often called Psyche, and in the Eleusinian mysteries symbolized by Persephone, is essentially a spiritual thing. Its true home is in the higher worlds, where, free from the bondage of material form and material concepts, is said to be truly alive and self-expressive. The human, of physical nature of man, according to this doctrine, is a tomb, a quagmire, a false and impermanent thing, the source of all sorrow and suffering. Plato describes the body as the sulphur of the soul, and by this he means not only the human form, but also human nature. And Plato was a very early proponent of eugenics, so I kind of take that with literally a pinch of salt, like he just said. But he also had some Gnostic teachings going there, and it's all about this place not being a great place to be. It's not something I kind of buy into myself, but I can understand they're two different. You can see, like, you've got the Kabbalists who want to stay here and stay alive forever. They want to be infinite, immortal, and then you've got the Gnostics who just want to get out of here. So it's kind of, you can see how they've kind of set up both sides there, which is really interesting. It's a quick one on Samael, because we haven't really mentioned him yet. So Samael is an archangel in Talmudic and post-Talmudic tradition, a figure who is the accuser of or adversary, so he's Satan in the book of Job, seducer and destroyer angel in the book of Exodus. So he's the bad male aspect of the god. Although many of his functions resemble the Christian notion of Satan, to the point of being sometimes identified as a fallen angel, he is not necessarily evil, since his functions are regarded as resulting in good, such as destroying sinners. And you can see it again there. Bad actions lead to good outcomes, and I just don't buy that. They're two different polarities. And that's what they're trying to sell you. I mean, everything's not black and white. Of course, there's different situations. Defending yourself from someone who's going to hurt you and killing them is a good outcome because they were going to kill you. I get that. But that's in response to a bad situation. So they're kind of taking things out of context here and are weaponizing them for their own use. So all the bad things they're doing in the Middle East at the moment, this cult, they're going to say it's for the greater good. That's literally what they say, and that's why they used it during the COVID scam. And they believe that it's for their greater good, but their greater good, not ours. Not me and you's greater goods, not ours. So here's a link back to what I was talking about earlier with this good tech, bad tech from the other side. I just find this fascinating. So it could be where this technology is coming from, and there's good tech, bad tech, or positive and negative tech, and then you have to realize, what's a positive outcome for these Kabbalists isn't a positive outcome for us. So it all gets very twisted, like the Cadusa, over each other. So you have to kind of find your way through it, and that's really just down to knowing common sense, which is evil is evil and good is good. It's very simple, but they do twist it, and that's the point. But the world of Taru is entirely beyond the finite being. It is a world emanated from the source of all worlds before finitude existed, before bounds were set to reality. The only bounds of Taru are the 10 luminous emanations, and they are two without bounds, infinite light in 10 discrete modalities. That was it, he realized. That was where things went wrong. For that is the first impossibility, the place of God's mind where his boundlessness meets with his desire to be found. So he wanted to know who he was, this God. The place where God comes face to face with his own paradox, his passion to be infinity within an infinite world. So how can you know yourself if you're everything? There has to be something else to put beside it. And so it shattered. The very core of reality is God's shattered dream, waiting for us to pick up the pieces. The fire of the sun, the air we breathe, the roaring waves of the oceans and all that lives in them, the earth and the planets and the animals that live upon it, even the human flesh, its vital soul, and the angels above. Everything we find in our world, in the worlds deeper within, are all no more than artifacts of the sparks that fell in the explosion of the primordial world. But the essence of the human beings, the breath of God within us, that God himself, gathering, refashioning, and piecing together an impossible dream. So the whole point of these guys believe is that they are repairing the world. And they believe that we, who are not of the Kabbalistic, Messianic belief system, that's a way of putting it, are the bad sparks. We're the husks holding this plan back. We are the evil here, and we must be gotten rid of by the end of the sixth day, the 6,000th year, so they can restore and repair this world. That's exactly what these guys believe, unfortunately. Tikkun Olam. So Tikkun Olam is repairing of the world, is a concept of Judaism which refers to various forms of action intended to repair and improve the world. Sounds lovely. In classic rabbinic literature, the phrase referred to legal enactments intended to preserve the social order, or reorder it. In the Elian prayer, it refers to the eradication of idolatry. Now, again, the Noahide laws. What is idolatry? Well, it's to these guys, that's believing in your faith, in your God, and your version of God. Even if you're a pagan who believes in loads of different ones. And these guys, the Elohim anyway, was gods, because this is all a cover. So if you don't believe in their God, it's idolatry. In Lurianic Kabbalah, the repair is mystical, to return the sparks of divine light to the source by means of ritual performance. And this is what we're seeing all over the world. The Tikkun Olam, the repairing of the world, the reset, and it's a ritual performance. All of it is a ritual performance. And then you have here, so this is what we're heading to, the Godhead. And this is just the androgynous Godhead. So this is why you're seeing all this androgynous madness going on. And I believe that Elon Musk is coming out and saying he's against transgenderism, but he's not against no gender, the androgynous gender. So he's skipping that bit because it's good for him, in my opinion, to be seen to be pushing back against this. But the ultimate goal isn't transgender. The ultimate goal is no gender. And he is working towards that in terms of the technology he's putting in people will create a no gender being who won't be able to procreate. So he's not on that road. He's not needed for that path at the moment. He can skip that bit, pretend to be against it, and then at the same time push the no gender androgynous being that is supposed to be a transhumanist 2.0 being that skips over the transgender agenda, which is just a pathway on towards that. You don't need that bit. Do you see how they move the chessboard around? So my belief is that that's why he's pushing that out, that he's against it, because he's working on something that's way past that. It's the no gender being. The roots of gender. In classic Torah literature, God is male, female, and neither and both. So this is their Godhead. It all comes down to God being both here and beyond at once. Philosophers call that eminence and transcendence. In the prophets, Midrash, and Kabbalah, and in our prayers, we distinguish these two modalities as female and masculine. Again, we've got this concept here, this androgynous, two-gender, no-gender being. An entire book of the Hebrew Bible, Song of Songs, is constructed around this paradigm, employing a metaphor of a woman and a man struggling with the love between them. When we refer to God's presence within our world, within us, and within nature, then she is the Shekinah. Again, she is the Shekinah. It's the female aspect of their good God, as opposed to Lilith, who's the female aspect of the bad God. And they think that that's our God. Our God is the beast, Samael and Lilith. Their God is Shekinah and Yahweh. This is a name that carries the meaning indwelling. The Shekinah dwells within our hearts and at the essence of everything that exists, generating life and nurture in from it. So Shekinah was the one who left the Solomon's temple, well, after it was pulled down by Yahweh and some other people, and she left in a huff and went off with the exiled Israelites apparently into the wilderness and into Egypt, and she protects them there with the blue protection, which is why they use the blue protection of the Kabbalah and from the evil eye, from us understanding what they're doing. That's why everything's done underwater around Epstein's Island, because the blue of the water protects them. And then you've got the blue of the water at the bottom and the blue of the sky at the top, the two rivers as well on the Israeli flag. It all comes together. When we refer to God's transcendence, how he is entirely beyond this world, we call him the Holy One, blessed be he. Holy, Kadosh in Hebrew, carries the sense of being unique and apart. In the language of the Zohar, he holds all that is, but none grasp who he is. Meaning, even as God sustains the life and the very existence of each thing, he remains beyond life and beyond temporal existence, unknowable in his essence to any of his creations. So it's unknowable, but they're telling you about it. God is one. He does not change or have parts. He's unknowable, remember? God is one. He does not change or have parts. But we don't know that because he's unknowable. God forbid. But these terms refer to the same one and singular God, just looking at the one God from different perspectives. So they're telling you two things, an oxymoron there, that God's unknowable and they know about God at the same time. I wonder they're confused. From one angle, you see God in a modality of thorough investment within our universe, eminently within every detail of our lives and nature. From another, you see him in a modality of absolute transcendence, even of existence itself. And again, that's from the Habad website, I believe. So that's the androgynous being. So the transhumanist agenda, this is massively part of this whole thing. This is where it's leading. Dave has spoken about this for years. Many people understand this. Elon Musk is the poster child for this. He may even be a transhuman. We don't know. I'm having a guess that he might be the first transhuman we've had, to be honest. But yeah, let's have a look at transhumanism. Transhumanists often advocate for three supers of intelligence: super longevity and super happiness. Longevity is the immortality, which is what they give you when you become a star in Hollywood, apparently. The last, because you're immortal on the silver screen. The last referring to ways of achieving lasting happiness. Silver, obviously, is also the material associated with the moon, and the moon is Shekinah. There are many different views among the transhumanist community of what our ongoing evolution should look like. For example, some advocate uploading the mind into a digital form and settling the cosmos. Again, something to do, innit? Others think we should remain organic beings but rewire or upgrade our biology through genetic engineering and other methods. And allowing this, that's why that mixes up with what I was talking about at the start when we go back to the tannin iva. That technology in there, I believe, they see this as the tannin iva that allows in these entities into the body, and they see it as an upgrade when it actually is going to be possession. Others think we should remain organic beings but rewire or upgrade our biology through this tannin iva and genetic engineering and other methods. A future of designer babies, artificial wombs, and anti-aging therapies appeal to these thinkers. So this is the type of lunacy. They want to play God, and we know that. We've talked about this before. But they wrap it in all of these esoteric principles. They believe that this is their human 2.0. This is their Adam 2.0. So where is all this leading? So this is all leading to something called the New Jerusalem. And I just want to speak about this because I haven't touched upon this, and I want to do a deeper kind of dive, you will, into this in another episode. But this is the New Jerusalem. Now, this sometimes gets confused with the cube of Saturn, although they could well be the same thing. I need to look into that a little bit more. So the New Jerusalem is a cube because the Holy of Holies in the temple, the inner chamber that symbolically at least was the dwelling place of the Lord, it had originally housed the Ark of the Covenant and symbolised, that's in Mar-a-Lago now, it originally housed the Ark of the Covenant and the symbolic throne of God, was a cube. Now, obviously, we've got the cube of Saturn. We've got the cube that sits in the middle of the Star of David with the so above as below triangles laid over the top of each other, creates a pattern in the middle, which is the cube of Saturn flat, which I think is a hexagon, if I'm right. So the New Jerusalem. So here it is. In the book of Ezekiel, in the Hebrew Bible, New Jerusalem is Ezekiel's prophet vision of a city centered on the rebuilt holy temple. So they build the temple first, and the city comes down around it, I think, to be established in Jerusalem, which would be the capital of the Messianic kingdom. So that's what they're building. The Greater Israel Project is the Greater Israel kingdom, and this is the Messianic kingdom. The meeting place of the 12 tribes of Israel during the Messianic era. Remember, the UK believe these black nobility bloodlines and the US bloodlines, they believe that they are part of these 10 tribes of Israel, which I went over last week or the week before. The prophecy is recorded by Ezekiel as having been received on Yom Kippur of the year 3372 Hebrew calendar. So it's fascinating to see this what's going to happen and what they believe, and I just want to skate through this quickly. So Judaism sees the Messiah as a human male descendant of King David who will be appointed as the king of Israel and sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem. So this is supposed to be possibly princess doesn't really matter, does it now? Prince William who's pure Merovingian bloodline. So he has the Habsburg head. Dean Henderson, who's on the show later on, talks about this as well. So it could well be that that's who he is. So we've got to look out for that, for this whole square thing coming down, right? That's what they're saying about that. And the king of it wouldn't be the god, it would be the king, remember? The king might be Prince William of Merovingian bloodline, or one of his kids, and the whole Rosemary's Baby thing is involved with that. But the actual god, I believe, will be an AI godhead tapping in with this tannin either to somewhere else, to this technology from other sides. What is the New Jerusalem like? The following points describe the New Jerusalem and who will be able to enter the city. The New Jerusalem is massive. The New Jerusalem is laid out in the form of a massive cube. Its length, width, and height are all equal distance. That's what a cube is. New Jerusalem is at least 1,500 miles around at its base, while some believe that each side of the city is 1,500 miles in length. See Revelations 21:16. This is what they want to come down after Shekinah and Yahweh reunited in the Holy Temple. They believe that this square New Jerusalem will come down and cover a large part of the world, and this is the part of the world that it'll cover. So this is the New Jerusalem. So you can see where it's placed there on the map. It makes total sense with what's going on with the Greater Israel Project, doesn't it? The New Jerusalem, the size of New Jerusalem means that there is plenty of room for everyone who wants to live in it. There isn't. Well, there may be, but you won't be allowed in it, because if your name's not on the list, you ain't coming in. And there's 12 gates, and if you're not Bill Gates, and if you're not on the list of being one of these messianic lunatics, you're definitely not coming in. The city is so large that there is enough room for those alive today and all those who have lived in the past. Well, I would hazard to say that that's not true, but even if there was, they're not going to let you in. The gates, not Bill Gates and the family. The city has 12 gates, 3 per side, which is obviously the 12 months of the year. Each gate is fashioned from a single pearl with an angel next to it. That's lovely. The pearls have the names of the 12 tribes of Israel written on it. So obviously if you're not part of the 12 tribes of Israel, you're not getting in the cube. Best of all, these gates will never be shut day or night. You come and go when you want. It's like 24-hour Tesco's, basically. That's just what it is. It's like, just it's 3 a.m, but I really, really fancy a fab. The sun, no sun or moon. Now, I found this really interesting. Now, I think we covered last week or the week before. It all gets confusing. But Bill Gates was trying to block out the sun and the moon because of these tribulations, and at one point the sun disappears for a certain amount of time. That clearly appears to be what the technology they're testing, in my opinion anyway, in my theory. So this says, no sun or moon. New Jerusalem is fully illuminated by the glory of God and the free energy, and the light of Lamb brightens the city. Revelations 21:23. There is no need for the sun or the moon. Get rid of them. Revelation 21:25 even says there shall be no night here. So they don't need the sun and the moon. So when you're looking at this in Kabbalistic terms, in terms of the the 2 pillars, look at the 2 pillars outside. So you've got your left pillar and your right pillar, Yakin and Boaz, and you've got the moon and the sun. They will no longer need this reality, because that's what those pillars represent, the polarities of duality, because they're going to collapse it all. They want to collapse it all into one and reset reality. So there will be no need for the sun and the moon. Doesn't mean there'll be no sun and moon. Obviously, none of this is probably going to happen, by the way. So in my opinion, this is just a cult doing what a cult does. But they will hurt a lot of people trying to get it done. That's my main concern. But what they are signifying there, symbolizing there, is that the old way will no longer need to be there. The 2 polarities, the sun and the moon, will be collapsed into one and no longer be required. That's what I believe that they're talking about. Yeah. So to begin with, these pillars were either brass or bronze. So this is Yakin and Boaz outside Solomon's temple and every Freemasonic temple. In either case, they came from a combination of sun, metal, that being copper, and moon, metal, that being zinc, tin or zinc. This mixture of sun and moon expressed harmony and balance. Passing through these pillars represent a chance for a new beginning. Well, actually, what they do represent in terms of these metals, like lead is Saturn, is an alchemical process. This is what it originally appeared to mean, is that the Solomon's Temple was an alchemical process, possibly to create the Philosopher's Stone. and they've just put it into a story, and then now they're trying to live it out properly because they believe all these processes work in one. So, and we will talk about that, and I'm looking into that now, and I need to do more research on these alchemical processes. But when you look at all the Sephiroth, and they line up to most of the planets, and each planet has a substance, a metal or a material to them, you can see it's an alchemical process. It's exactly what it is. So the Great Reset logo, so just to end it round about here, the Great Reset logo is what I've been talking about. They want to reset the Earth, so you've got the circle there that goes all the way around, so no beginning, no end, it's infinite. They want to block it off and reset it by pressing on God and resetting him in the middle there. That's what the Great Reset is, and it's all part of this Kabbalistic nonsense. So I heard from a rabbi. So this is basically, let's just end it here. I want to talk about the timeline quickly before we end of what these guys want to do. So this has a timeline to it. That's why you see them speeding up. I heard from a rabbi that the year 6000 will be the last year, the year when the Moshiach will arrive and usher in the redemption. I thought we do not know when the last year will be, so why the prediction? Because they're making up to go along, but carry on. The Talmud tells us that this world, as we know it, will last for 6,000 years, with the 7th millennium ushering the cosmic Sabbath, so the Messianic era. 6 days a week we work, so this was the 6 days that the world was created in. And on the Sabbath, so Sunday, we rest and enjoy the fruits of our labour. The same is true with the millennium. So obviously Saturday would be Saturn Day, so it's satanic before the rest. However, it is certainly possible for the Moshiach to come earlier, and we believe, hope and pray each day that this day will come when the Moshiach will return. This is also analogous to the weekly Shabbat, which we have the prerogative of ushering in early on Friday afternoon. So yes, we don't know exactly when the Moshiach will come, but we do know that it will be before the year 6000, and this is really important. Currently, as I write this response, we are in the year 5768, and that was in 2017. So they believe they were in 5678. Again, that was from the Chabad website, so I'm not saying I believe this is what they believe, and that's what's most important here from what we're discussing. So I wrote this myself. I did a bit of maths. So the timeline of the end of the 6,000 years, so the 6 days of creation, according to this Messianic sect, the premise is that we are not part of this lunacy, so to speak, will only last the 6 days of creation. So us lot, the premise is that we, me and you, are not part of the 12 tribes of Israel with the 12 gates, will only last the first 6,000 years for when we needed to, help create the world, and then just get rid of them. We've got some androgynous Elon Musk, Starlink cyborgs now to do what we want. Cyborg, what my bum. In 2007, we were supposedly at the year 5768, as you just saw on the bad website. So 6,000 minus 5,768 is 232. This was 2007, and it's now 2024. So 24 minus 7, so the 7 years since that was written, is 17. So you take that 17 off from 232, and that's 215. So 215 years now. So they had the maximum of 250 years to get this done before they believe the 7th day, the Sabbath, and it's the 7 days of, also the 7th day of rest, their Sabbath, which would usher in the 8th day, or the world to come. So that 1,000 years there is a time of rest for them. And they believe they have to get it done or they will be punished. So this would take us to around the maximum year of 2,239 maximum. But that would mean cutting it fine and risking the wrath of Yahweh, and that day also depends on which calendar they're using, which affects the year 0, the year 0 being the time when Adam was born. So they have different calendars, and there seems to be like 100, 150 years discrepancy between that. So there's two groups here, working on different timelines and freaking out, because 2040 seems a big year for these guys. But 2,239 seems to be the maximum year anyway, that they need to get this done before their 8th day of the world to come needs to be in place. It's the 7th day, and then 1,000 years after that will be the 8th day. Their Messiah can return any time as soon as the temple is built, and Shekinah, who's the female, is united with Yahweh male. So when that's reunited, the temple, the built, then they're reunited, then their New Jerusalem come down into one androgynous being. They seem to expect the golden cube of New Jerusalem to descend. It's all a bit mad, isn't it? So that's what we're looking at. That's their whole, I could be wrong, obviously. That seems to be their whole agenda, is to work towards that year. We're not supposed to survive the end of this. sixth day or 6,000th year, according to these Kabbalistic lunatics. And that's why it's all speeding up. And these are the guys, remember, before I go, that are around and influencing the likes of Netanyahu, Donald Trump, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, many others, Malay, Zelensky, Putin. They're influencing them. Now, whether they believe in this stuff or not, or just, paying them lip service, let's hope they aren't. But the fact that these guys that believe this stuff are around some of the leading names in politics, and obviously they're not the ones doing it, it's these black nobility bloodlines that are really pulling all the strings, because they believe they are of the 12 lost tribes of Israel and worship these gods back to Babylon. If they're around these politicians and they've been brought up around these guys, then we have a lot of concern about this way of thinking, and that's why it's important to know these things and study these things. So guys, remember to do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and I will see you in a week's time. Please enjoy the interview coming up with Dean Henderson. Unfortunately, we had technical problems, so the interview got cut off about 35 minutes into it, but it's a fantastic 35 minutes chatting to him about what's happening in the US and his take on, and he has a different take on the Trump's cabinet, and we talk about some of this messianic stuff, especially about the connections between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and the fact that they co-conspire together quite clearly to create some of these terrorist groups. And Elon Musk is funded by Qatar, sovereign funds, and the Saudi royals, and it's there with Jared Kushner, who's a Chabadnik. So these things to keep an eye on, and it was a great chat. And unfortunately, I apologise for the technology letting us down, but it's a fantastic interview, and it'll add a nice bookend to this. So take care, and I'll see you in a week's time. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to this week's Classified here on Ickonic.com. I'm here with one of my favourite people, Dean Henderson. He's been kind enough to come on the show many times over the last few years, and I'm proud to call him a friend and be kind of in the class of research that he's been doing. I'm becoming one of the old guard now. I'm in with these guys, and it's an absolute honour and a pleasure to be part of this and sharing information with Dean. Now, Dean, I listened to your live chat with Jeff Rintz on the night of the elections, and we are going to go over the elections here today, but obviously all the dark connections around since then. Trump has stacked his cabinet with ultra Zionists and messianic people, and we can talk about them. So what is your first take on what's going on? Because I know you kind of had a little bit of hope that he might this time around do something. I'm not saying you thought he would be, great for us all, but because of the people around him, he might have like a RFK in there that would make a difference. So what is your take? Maybe is it a week and a half out?
Yeah, I think my take really, honestly, is it's confirmed. So to me, it's confirmed. Yesterday, it was double, triple, 10 times, 100 times confirmed when Wall Street tanked. And Wall Street, it's finally sinking in now that this is bad. The Trump administration is bad. This cabinet is the best cabinet I've seen since have been alive, by far. Not even close. I mean, you got people in there that they're gonna throw a wrench in the shit. And okay, I don't know. People can say whatever about whoever, but I just know Bobby Kennedy's going to be running Medicaid, Medicare. He's going to be recalling vaccines. He's going to be investigating 5Gs and 5G and probably putting a hold on it because he does believe that Wi-Fi and 5G cause cancer, among other things. Like he believes that mind controls people. He said it in speeches. I mean, this is huge. So, I just confirmed, okay? To the extent that Wall Street crashed yesterday, it finally sank in. The first day he was elected, it went up 1,500 points, right? And they thought, oh, it's Trump, and we're going to get, big business and, tax cuts for the rich and deregulation and all of this stuff. And then within a week, it's like, oh, wait, RFK is going to regulate the drug companies and the food companies, actually. Price controls probably on pharmaceuticals. Who knows, maybe even single payer healthcare. And then Tulsi Gabbard, let's see, she's going to shut down the fucking war machine. Oh, no more guns for Ukraine. Yeah, we got a problem with Israel. That's true. And that's a big problem. But I'm hopeful because one thing happened yesterday that gives me hope is Elon Musk. Whatever you think of him, I don't think much of him. But he met with Iran's UN ambassador. And not one person ever met with the Iranians during the Biden administration. Not one. And I don't think one met with them during the previous Trump administration, which was a fucking joke, which was because he was surrounded by advisors from Goldman Sachs, from Wall Street, from the CIA, from the families, the bloodlines, right? And he didn't really pick them. You know how it is. They pick them for you. Well,
Yeah.
this time Trump picked them, and this time the Steve Bannons of the world, the renegades picked him. And Matt Gates, I like Matt Gates. I like him. I think he's a good man. I think he's going to disrupt the shit. I like Marjorie Taylor Greene a lot. I like Lauren Boebert a lot. I like those people. I'm a MAGA person as far as look. If I got to pick between conservative Republican banker fucks or people that wear corn hats and grow up on a farm like I did, and maybe that you don't like how they talk or you don't like how they look or you don't like NASCAR. Well, you know what? Fuck you. Democrats can shut the fuck up because they lost. And I'm pretty sick of the whining, and I'm pretty sick of ringing hand. Look, Kamala Harris was the crown for sure. Her husband, Doug Emhoff, for sure was Piper LLC's lead lawyer in the United States, which is the Crown, the Windsor family's law firm in America. Where's his little fucking yarmulke? Gonna be worse, probably Israeli policy than Trump. There's no way in hell. I didn't vote for either one of them. Like, as you know, I voted for RFK, even though he wasn't on the ballot. I mean, he was on the ballot, but he wasn't. He was dropped out, but he was still on the ballot in South Dakota. So I just voted for him. But I was, and I was not. That night I just threw it out there. I was more like hope. It was really like a 1% chance. But I swear to God, man, he's filled in this administration is it's populist. Okay, there's what's going to happen to Lockheed Martin stock? Did you see what happened to it yesterday? Because Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. What's going to happen to Raytheon stock? See what happened to it yesterday? Check it out. See what happened to Pfizer stock? You're talking about bankruptcy, man. This is getting kind of funny now. And I actually think there's hope. And I actually have never felt like this for, I don't know, probably ever. No, probably never. I've never felt like this, probably, Rich. Like there's actually a chance that this guy, and I do, and that's exactly what I think. Look, Trump's a prick. I hated him when he was on The Apprentice. You're just your typical billionaire prick, right? Thought he could do anything he wanted, say anything he wanted, treat people bad, and just have them bend over, and just horrible. I really think that he was influenced by these MAGA people, and at first it was like this fake thing where they told him to go out and talk about nationalizing the Fed or investigating 9/11, and that would get him to vote for him, and that they could get the votes away from Bernie Sanders and those socialists, because that's their worst nightmare. But look what Trump's doing. Is he going socialist on us? I mean, check it out, man. I think it's like a revolution kind of. And there's union people now behind him. And it's like, you don't understand if you don't live here. You don't understand. Well, you probably do understand, Rich, in the UK, because you saw the same thing happen with the Labor Party and how they abandoned the working class, right? And it's the same thing in America. Maybe it's worse. The Democrats abandoned the working class. They abandoned them. And that's a book called What's the Matter with Kansas by Thomas Frank. It's an excellent book. Everyone should read. It was written in the mid 90s, maybe. No, actually it's early 2000s. Yeah, sure. Because he's talking about the Clintons and how the Clintons really, with their triangulation, and how they try to please everybody, So they basically get more conservative. That's what Kamala Harris represents, on a political economy thing. Throw out the crown control and all that stuff, but she's also a very right-wing Democrat. Trump, if you look at Trump's policies, a pretty moderate Republican, actually, even though the Trump derangement people want to portray him as this dangerous, fascist, he's actually to the left of George Bush, Reagan, a lot of recent conservative presidents, most of them, his tariffs, that's a really populist idea. That's a really good idea. I always liked that idea. And I said so many, many, many times when he was president the first time in interviews. I said so on Press TV, which hated Trump. But I still had to say I like the tariffs because I do. Because you're making corporations pay for stuff coming out of China. And if it gets too painful, they'll just move their factories where? Back to the US. That's the point.
Yep.
And that's a really good idea. And that's actually how America was funded during the beginning years when there wasn't such tight control by the Federal Reserve crowd, although there was control through the Bank of the United States, which was the same crowd, but then we kind of lost that control, and tariffs was a big deal on that. And so I don't know. I'm really curious. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard does like Assad. Tulsi Gabbard does like Russia. Gets along with Putin. And so I don't know. That war is over. That war was over anyway. The Russians have defeated the Ukrainian, a long time ago, actually. They just keep taking more territory. It's just up to the Ukrainians how much they want to lose at this point. The quicker they concede, and just then it's over. But if they keep being belligerent, terrorists, basically, that which they have been, which they are, they're state terrorists. They're a terrorist state like Israel. These are the worst two most evil countries in the world that we support here, Ukraine and Israel. It's not an exaggeration either. I'm not kidding. These are the two most evil countries on the planet that we're supporting. So, at least with Trump, we know we're getting rid of one, supporting one. And we don't know, Israel, like I said, yeah, people need to tell him, they need to keep talking to him. He's appointed this Huckabee, this crazy Mike Huckabee. That's really troubling because Huckabee is one of these evangelicals, and he probably saw that he said Palestinians don't really even exist. It's just Arabs and people that don't belong there, and Israel, can have the West Bank and everything else. And so that's really bad. Obviously, that's really bad. But like I said, I seen Musk met with the UN ambassador to Iran yesterday, and I don't know. Let's see what happens. Trump's a negotiator. Look what happened with Kim Jong-il. You start out and Kim's firing rockets, and by the time it's over, him and Trump are going to fucking Disneyland together or whatever. I think that's what's going to happen with Iran too. I think it's actually we have a better chance at least than we do if it's Kamala or obviously Biden, because we literally were well. I can say we're close to World War III, but actually we're kind of already in World War III. We're already in it, kind of, and we need to extricate ourselves from it. Is how I think a person should put that. But
I
what do
think
you
you're
got,
right.
Rich? You were
Yeah,
talking about,
no. I
yeah,
think you're exactly the same. And it's good to get another take on Trump. I kind of concentrate on the messianic stuff that we discussed before there, and that's the
yeah,
worry with me, the Israeli messianic stuff with me. It's a different kind of avenue that I go down, which is massive part
mhm,
of what it is. But I don't want to discuss that just yet. We'll get to that later. But I want to talk about is you talked about, you mentioned CIA around him originally, and they placed people in there. Well, you've got Peter Thiel in there straight away with JD Vance, and you've got Eric
yeah,
Schmidt, who did
that's
fund
true.
Harris. Eric Schmidt is in a partnership, America's Frontier Fund, with Peter Thiel. So they
Mhm,
were funding both sides. They had a CIA in both sides, basically.
mhm.
So
Yeah, JD Vance, you bet.
You've got this Thiel connection in there, and these
Mhm.
technocrats, Musk included, who's
Yeah,
funded by Thiel,
yeah,
around Trump. So there is this transhumanist, and I know you speak a lot about the 5G problems. That is around Trump. That worries me. What is your kind of
yeah.
concerns about that?
Oh yeah, that's legit, man. I mean, in Musk, I mean, think about it, man. Like was it his dad or his grandfather? One of the two was the head of the whole transhumanist
Yeah,
thing in Canada,
grandfather. Yeah,
right?
grandfather.
Grandfather, wasn't it? Yeah. And Neuralink, man. I mean, I'm supposed to like a guy that started Neuralink. I'm supposed to like a guy that put all these satellites up with 5G and just frying every corner of the planet right now. Yeah, no, I don't like him. I don't like him either. I've never liked him. He's like a cyborg or something. But it's weird. I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I do. We were talking, me and my old lefty friends, the only ones that could really see through the derangement syndrome thing. We're talking about how like Bobby Kennedy and Vivek Ramaswamy should have been a ticket. Because if you start listening to him, he's really smart, and he's going right after the money, the big money. Just like a lot of these people are that we're talking about here in this administration. I don't know. But I get what you're saying about, and Kushner. I don't know where Kushner's at. Like Jeff said, Kushner was running the transition, but that's not what I've heard. But what have you heard? Where's he at? Like, why haven't we seen him?
No, I haven't
Maybe
heard anything about
they
Kushner.
tossed him. I mean,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
wonder.
obviously his son-in-law, isn't it? And he's obviously in with this
I know,
bad
but Ivanka
guys.
and him haven't been around for the whole damn
They
campaign.
haven't.
Think
No,
about
yeah,
it.
you're right. Yeah, they haven't.
So I don't know. I just wonder if maybe Trump, like I said, these people rubbed off on him. He also has seen the machinations now, and I'm sure it's way worse than he thought. Yeah, I don't know. But he's still Trump. He's still supposedly in debt to the Rothschilds for them bailing him out, the Taj Mahal casino, the whole
Mm.
thing, Atlantic City. So, the burden is on him to prove that what I'm saying is true and that this is happening. But I gotta say, like with his appointments, I don't know. I mean, there was people saying Tulsi Gabbard was with this Council on Foreign Relations, so I looked that up, and that wasn't true. And I think there's a lot of slander about her. There's a lot of slander about certain people. Well, obviously Kennedy, obviously. I mean, yeah, I guess so. So if you don't trust the medical establishment, the corporations, then you're a conspiracy theorist, right? wow, that's pretty heavy. But listen to him still on the mainstream media, just running him down and berating him, and Tulsi too. And there really does, I don't know, seem to be this kind of panic in the establishment. Um, the Federal Reserve, they're all going to cut rates, and now that's kind of on hold. And like I said, the stock market took a big hit yesterday, and I think that's it was led by pharmaceutical and defense stocks. It's lower, and they're talking about it on Wall Street. They're freaking out. No, they're openly talking about it now. Like, wait a minute here, we're not too sure about this anymore. I don't know. I'm trying to think of so who's there's people who else. I'm trying to think of people I don't like. Huckabee I don't like. That's a really bad appointment. Um Marco Rubio, yeah, I don't know, whatever. He supposedly is close to the Pahlavi Iranian monarchy somehow.
Right.
So he's bad news. He's the Secretary of State. There's a couple bad apples for sure in there. But those are the two that stand out to me as far as and the two that stand out as good are Kennedy and Tulsi for sure. Um, but yeah, we're just gonna have to see, man. We're just gonna have to see. The one thing about like I say, the one thing about Trump's gonna happen is we're not gonna be antagonistic towards Russia anymore. I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen, and that's huge because yeah, I mean, there's North Korean troops fighting in Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine's blowing up the roads to South Korea. Ukraine is building all these kamikaze. I mean, I'm sorry, North Korea is blowing up the roads to South Korea. North Korea is building this fleet of kamikaze drones, I guess now, getting ready for something. And China, they flew the biggest sorties ever over Taiwan like a month ago, like more planes than any exercise ever. Iran is winning actually, and Hezbollah is winning, and Israel is being defeated despite the lies that you hear every day. God, they're such good liars, and they're just incessant liars, and they just lie and they lie all day long, all night long. But they're getting defeated. Hezbollah is hitting a lot of targets in Israel, military bases targets. Israel has lost more troops in the last month than it's lost in any month of the war. They're pulling entire units out of southern Lebanon. Iran, 90% success rate on that last attack in Israel, despite the lies. And they have a rocket now that, well, they can't touch these. They can't stop the Iron Dome can't stop these rockets. Neither can the THAAD system that the U.S. sent them after that, because it's a low gliding thing where if it glides low and slow enough, it can evade these radars. And Iran has that, and they know it now. And that's why Israel did this little punk ass thing. They just, last time they're scared. They're fucking scared. So it's not even a question of like, ooh, the Chibadians control us. It's more of a question of we're gonna kick your fucking ass right now. And Trump's gonna maybe hopefully be a part of that. And I'm gonna be a part of it. I'm damn sure gonna be a part of it. And you're going down. And that's what I'm hoping. We got to turn him around on this Israel thing. We got to turn him around on this. And I don't know how that's gonna happen, man.
Yeah, yeah, he's massively in with this bad guys that I mentioned before, and I mentioned a lot, and we'll come to that messianic part earlier. But just to go on from what you said there, obviously we're looking at the Saudi Arabia kind of this war, these two kind of philosophies or ideologies, religions, faiths against each other, basically, bringing on World War III and dragging the US and UK in it. But we just saw today Julian Assange come out and said that ISIS was funded by the Saudi royals or Saudi Arabia, even not the Saudi royals, Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Now, Elon Musk, no, he went there. X was funded by money from the Qatar Sovereign Fund and also the Saudi royals. And he was there recently talking to, was it Iran, did you say? He went to? Where did he go to?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
went to, yeah. So but when he was there with the Qatar guys negotiating these deals for X, he was with Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner being Donald Trump's son-in-law, a Chabadnik, so Messianic sect of the Judaist, sort of mystic Jewish faith. So there clearly is a crossover here at one level where they're not divided. And you said to me that they created some of these, what we would say, terrorist groups together. Could you kind of talk on that?
Well, they did. And I mean, the whole Muslim Brotherhood, So look, you have the Freemasons is basically the Christian version. And understand that Christianity is just a cover. Like these people are Satanists and they know
Yeah.
it. The organizers at the top know it. They're not, it's just a cover. The Christian thing is a cover. But the Freemasons are the Christian, satanic cult. And then the Muslim Brotherhood is the Muslim satanic cult. So they're not Muslims either. They don't
Yeah.
believe any of that. That's why the Saudi princes, who are the Muslim Brotherhood, who head the Muslim Brotherhood, are hedonistic and do cocaine and have, they're playboys. And they just go to Monaco and get hookers and cocaine. And I mean, they don't care about anything about morals or Islam or anything, right? Just like the Masons at the top level don't either. It's a joke to them. And Jesus is a joke, and you want to grab as much in this world, and that's what you do. You don't help people, you don't be nice, you don't give, you take, and that's their philosophy on life. And that's why we're in that fucking shit we're in, because that's what they've done to this earth, is just take, and never get back. So the Muslim Brotherhood, and that is lodged in Aramco, which is the big oil company, the biggest oil company in the world. Used to be owned, maybe still owned, we don't know. When I did my thesis, it was owned by Exxon Mobil, Chevron, Texaco, Shell, BP. But then they claim to have nationalized it. But then there's some other evidence that maybe they haven't. Either way, the big four horsemen of oil, which I just mentioned, owned by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and J.P. Morgan Chase, and on up we go to BlackRock and wherever else. But the Royals, the ground. But anyway, that entity, Aramco, is in Saudi Arabia, and that's the epicenter of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the headquarters of it, you could say. Just kind of like the city of London is the headquarters for the Freemasons, right? And so you have to deal with Saudi Arabia, knowing that, and knowing that they're also connected with the Chabadians, or the Talmud, the Talmudists, or whatever you want to call them, these satanic Jews. I guess Dave calls them what, Frankens. There's just different we call it. They're just satanic Jews. Yeah, they're the people, Ashkenazis. They're the Ashkenazis, Nazis. Yeah, the Ashken Nazis. Yeah, those guys. And there's again, they lived in they were the Khazars. They lived. The Russians had to invade Khazaristan like many times because the neighboring countries, their women and children would go missing, and they would just blood sacrifice people, and they were just evil people from the get. And the Rothschilds at that time were the Baccarats, and they controlled the west end of the Silk Road trade, whereas the Li family in China owned the east end of the Silk Road trade, right? And so that's how the Rothschilds actually got started. Right. And then they went to the House of Hesse in Germany as the Bauer family and ripped them off and, took all their money. And that was the second phase of their wealth accumulation. But anyway, the Khazars, the Ashkenazis, are the ones in Israel now. This is not God's chosen people. This is not the Ethiopian black Coptic Christians who now live in Ethiopia. And then King Solomon invaded there and married Queen Sheba and tried to take that over. And then, all along the museums have been like collecting all the Coptic Christian Bibles because that's the only truth. That tells you exactly what happened. That's in Aramaic. And that talks about the giants, and that talks about the Gnostics, and that talks about the fact that there's evil on this earth, and there has been, and a lot of things that, Christians don't even hear. So the Ethiopians, that to me, that's who the people in Israel, the Israelites, were at that time. They were black. Jesus was clearly black. It's just so, it's obvious if you study it. So anyway, yeah, of course, the Saudis are working with Israel, which is the Ashkenazis, the Talmudists, the Kabbalists is the, the Kabbalah is the Jewish secret society. You could say that's the Jewish satanic cover. Yeah, it's Kabbalists would be the word to say there. Madonna is part of that, all these big shots. But it's basically the same thing. It's evil satanic shit under the cover of Judaism in this case. So the Saudi Kabbalists and the Muslim Brotherhood and the Freemason CIA people, of course, they all work together. And for the one new world government, new world order, new secular order, that's the key. Wipe out all notions of higher power. First start with religion. That's pretty easy to do that because it's corrupt and you've corrupted it and you've used it as a cover for your secret societies, and your banks and the Vatican don't look very good to people. So you've pretty much thoroughly discredited that. So that's gone. And then you go after just any notion that there's a higher power, there's a creator, that there's good even in the world. You go after the notion that there's good in the world. So you run all the screens and you depict all these people being just horrible to each other. And you hope people will become part of that cult, that TV cult that you're trying to create, that system of values or lack thereof that you are trying to promote, which is Satanism. And, So yeah, they funded ISIS. The Saudis funded ISIS. I don't know about the Qataris. Qataris are interesting because, of course, you got Al Jazeera there. Of course, they're the ones that are, a lot of times helping Iran a little bit, at least getting along with Iran. But I still don't trust them. It's the Al Thani family instead of the Al Saud family. And the Al Thani family is a single family monarchy in Qatar. And in the UAE, you have the Al Maktoum family, and in Bahrain, you have the Al Khalifa family. And you have single family rule in Oman. You have the forgetting that one, but anyway, they're the same. And it's just all this is the Gulf Cooperation Council that Reagan created in 1982 to basically destroy OPEC as a producer cartel, which Iran, Algeria, Iraq, Indonesia, Nigeria, Venezuela, they were known as the price hawks because they were developing and they wanted a high price for oil and they wanted the West to pay for it. And the reason they formed the GCC was so that they would drive the price of oil down. The GCC, which sits on 42% of the world's oil on that southwestern part of the Persian Gulf, that's 42% of the world's oil right there in this pretty small area, right? Including the Saudi Ghawar oil field, which is the biggest. They have all that oil. So they said, they went to Paul Volcker, the Fed chairman, went to the Kuwaitis, and he said, look, you got this really light sweet crude that is really good, and it's better than any crude except maybe the Nigerians have the good stuff too, the Bonnie Light they call it. And they went to Nigeria too. Volcker went to Nigeria too, and he said, "You guys are the best. Well, if you all agree only to trade in dollars, then we'll give you make you the benchmark for oil. We'll make you we'll give you a $2 or $3 premium on every barrel of oil we buy from you because it's better oil." And they agreed to it, and that was the beginning of this framework where became a petrodollar. The U.S. dollar became a petrodollar,
Yep.
And then that was solidified by the formation of the Gulf Cooperation Council by Reagan in '82, and that became this defense pact against Iran, against the nationalists, the Algerians, the Iraqis under Saddam. Iraqis again today, they hate us again. Imagine that. Why wouldn't they? Now they like Iran, and so basically we cemented Iran and Iraq as good friends through that Iraqi war. And I mean, we gave oil to Royal Shell and created. Yeah, and the Turks, of course, always were using the Turks, so we used them in Kirkuk, where the other big oil field is in Iraq, and that's Exxon deal, I think. And that's where the Iranians bombed the Israeli embassy. Right next to it was a ISIS training center, and they bombed that too. The Iranians now know what Julian Assange is saying. They knew it before he knew it. But not very long ago, it's only like 6 months ago, the Iranians clued into this. And I've been telling them on press TV and interviews for years that I thought that. But I was pretty sure that the U.S. created ISIS. Pretty sure that I know who creates them. It's the Aga Khan Foundation. That's exactly who creates them. And that's a Saudi-funded religious school thing, these madrasas that they have in Pakistan and Afghanistan, Indonesia, all over the world. They fund these religious schools, the Saudis do, the madrasas. And yeah, so the Saudis, they create ISIS, they created Al Qaeda, they created the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, they created Daesh, all that stuff, of course. And that's the political economy and the philosophy is taught to these kids early. And then, so it's all an intelligent, and it's the Aga Khan Foundation runs these schools. And the Khan family, I've talked about it many times, is one of the bloodline families, Khan. Mm-hmm. And Sadiq Khan, your Lord Mayor or whatever. And, the prime minister of Pakistan, is a Khan. There's a lot of Khans. If you start looking and then think about the word Khan, it's like, it should be C-O-N, Khan. Yeah. Where do you think they got the name? So they create these guys for British intelligence and the CIA. And sure, the Saudis fund it. The Israelis facilitate it. There's Taiwanese trainers. There's, it depends on which countries, which flavor of the day fascists support the CIA. It'll be Argentina now again. You'll have Argentina trainers again now that Milei's in there because he's a little baby fascist Trump or whatever. He's worse though. He's just nuts and he wants to privatize like the moon and everything. And but I'm just rambling, but that's kind of how it works. And that's the real politic of it. And so to think the Israelis and the Saudis are loggerheads, no, they never really were. But that's why Hamas attacked when it did, because there was this the Abraham Accords, and there was a threat that they were going to sign an official peace deal with the Saudis. They were on the verge of it, and I'm pretty sure that's why Hamas attacked when it did, because if that had happened, if it was, I mean, it's already common knowledge that they're working together, kind of. But if it's official, then it is game over for the Palestinians and any kind of probably nationalist movements, because that's where you see in Reagan's GCC, yeah, working with the Israelis, and that was the idea to get the GCC and the Israelis to work together. And there's people that actually think the Al Saud family, they might even be different like ethnicity, like they might be Jews. Like, I mean, there's people that talk about that too, and Wahhabism and where that came from. And Wahhabism was the ideology that British intelligence introduced into the Saudi royal family back in the 50s. So you could say the Saudis are funding it, but look, you got to realize the Saudis are just a paymaster for the crown, and that's all. I mean, they're just a paymaster. They're not that high in the pole. I mean, they just pay for it. They pay for the operations with their oil money. That's part of the deal.
So unfortunately, Dean's power cut off about there. But there was some fantastic information, especially about how Saudi Arabia and Israel are basically funded by these secret societies underneath. So you've got the Sabbateans, or do you want to call them Chabad Lubavitch, or the Ashkenazim, or as Dean calls them. And you've obviously got the Muslim Brotherhood, which I've spoken about before with Leo Zagami, and which is kind of like the Assassins and their connection to the Knights Templar, which are the top level of the Freemasons. This satanic kind of cult is underneath all of these things, pulling all the strings by the looks of it. How far Trump is into that, he's very much in with Chabad Lubavitch, as you guys know. So is RFK Jr. was surrounded by them. Tulsi Gabbard's been in contact with them. Putin, Zelensky, these guys seem to hover around all these political kind of big names trying to get this messianic agenda, but Trump seems to be one of the ones who's mainly involved with these guys. So that's my main concern. And we did discuss that later in the show. He's very much positive about the fact that RFK and Tulsi Gabbard are in Trump's cabinet. So we'll see how that plays out. Apologies for the cutting off of the interview there. Dean will be back on very soon with us. Unfortunately, the tech failed us this week. But remember to do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and we'll see you in a week's time. Take care. Goodbye.